Can you believe this is episode 100? It's been an amazing 2 years bringing you this podcast, so I want to give you, our listeners, my thanks for listening and subscribing to the show. We also couldn't have gotten to this milestone without the help and support from our sponsor, Silent Pocket. Make sure you visit silentpocket.com to check out their line of Faraday bags and other products built to protect your privacy. And don't forget, you get 15% off your order by using discount code SharedSecurity at checkout. Welcome to the 100th episode of the Shared Security Weekly Blaze podcast. And in this very special edition of the show, I'm joined with favorite and perhaps the most popular guest we've had on the show, the infamous Kevin Johnson.
Infamous.
Infamous.
Yeah, I think that's only because you shot me in the head at a wasp with a rocket.
I did. I did. There is a video of that. And we actually have that video in one of the monthly shows, I believe. I spliced that into the video.
I bet you did.
Guess what? I'll have that in the show notes.
Oh, man.
You know I will.
I do.
That's right. Well, we are here because this is such a big episode for the podcast, and just always great to have Kevin back on the show. But we really want to end the year and talk about two things. First, we want to talk about Kevin's thoughts on the year that was 2019, and then we like to talk about maybe what he thinks is coming up in 2020, or what he wants to see in 2020 from a cybersecurity and privacy perspective. And we're going to do this all under 15 minutes.
It's going to be a challenge. Start your watches.
Doing it. So what do you think, Kevin? What about the year that was?
I think it's been a good year. I like 2019. I know that not everybody can say that. I think that we've done some really, really cool things. We've gotten better at things. Technology is constantly improving. Right now, we can just say machine learning and AI and venture capital will fall out of the ceiling. So that's kind of cool. But I think that the big and I worry sometimes I'm just a negative person, right? I just don't like people.
Not at all.
I don't follow me on Twitter then. And but I think that in my opinion, one of the things I reflect back on 2019 and say, this is something we should get better at. We should stop. Is I feel like, and that we have as an industry really moved toward this idea that everything we do needs as much attention as possible. And I'm not a psychologist. I don't even play one on Facebook. But and maybe it's just the world has gotten that way, or because communication is so fast or whatever. But I feel like we've seen a lot this year that people promote things as if they're unique and new, and have forgotten the origins. And the most recent example I can think of is, and I can never remember the name of it, and we just talked about it, Strandhawk.
Yes, right? The Android vulnerability.
The Android vulnerability. Hey, we have a vulnerability. It's been announced, and without even going to the website, I know that it says, and we talked about this, so I know I'm right. But even before I went to the website the first time, when I first heard about it, I knew what I was going to read was a quote along the lines of, security researchers from company X have announced, right? That phrase is always there at the beginning. And you know my opinion of the term security researcher. It's just another phrase for criminal in many cases. But what we see is, hey, I found a vulnerability. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. And then you look at the vulnerability and it's something that's been around for 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, whatever, right? And while I don't expect that we'll never duplicate stuff, like we all make mistakes. I'm sure that there's been times I've stood up and said, hey, look at this vulnerability. And I thought I was doing something new and somebody had found it before. Yeah. But we seem to be doing that more and more, that it's more important for us to get attention than to actually solve a problem or to help fix things.
Yeah. So have you seen just a lot of stunt hacking this year? Is
I
that where we're going?
I hesitate to use the term stunt hacking because it causes so many debates and arguments and pissy feelings from people. But yeah, I think I was just talking to a friend of mine about the fact that we seem to be losing basic knowledge. Like, I made a comment to the friend that, I started running bulletin board systems, and he's like, yeah, people don't know what those are anymore. And right, I talked to a firewall admin at a customer about pulling a config from a firewall, and the interface he uses doesn't do that. And I'm like, well, just SSH into the firewall and pull the config. And he didn't know what I meant, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why everything has to be so impressive. Hey, look at this cool thing I did. Look at this. Look at me. Look at me. Instead of what we should be doing is, here are the problems. Here are the solutions I think will fix it. The fact that we can talk about things like the latest Android vulnerability and ignore the fact that 93.5% of all organizations don't patch their systems.
Yeah.
Right. I made up that statistic, by the way.
Of course you did.
That I think is the biggest takeaway from 2019 to me is we have to stop focusing so much on why we're cool. Because us are cool.
I completely agree with you, and I think we have completely lost a focus on the basics all around, like the fundamentals. I'm just seeing a lack of the basic security fundamentals, and it all comes back to that. Like, we've seen huge increases in social engineering and phishing attacks this year, right?
Yep.
Or credential stuffing attacks. Yep. All of these things are caused by, weak passwords or lack of awareness of clicking on a link, right? Basics.
OWASP top 10. They removed CSRF from the list because, according to their own documentation, and I'm not arguing, right? I'm just saying, like, their own documentation says we're not worried about CSRF anymore because it's been fixed by the platforms, which implies that we're not going to teach people what CSRF means because the platform they build handles it for them without them understanding the basic concept. And what that means is we're not going to teach them the basic concept anymore, right? Yep. And so the next vulnerability, which, by the way, I want to be very clear, CSRF has not been fixed, but we're not going to teach that basic. So one, if the platform fails or they're not using a platform that does actually try to fix it, they're not going to try to fix it either because they don't know it. And when the next vulnerability that is similar comes out, they're not going to understand the basics to solve it. All around, that's that.
And ironically, that CSRF is actually on I can't even talk, the CWE top 25, which was just updated. They updated, it was like 8 years old, and they just updated it, and people are already talking about that's a better list than the OWASP top 10. Just saying.
Well, I have my own personal opinion.
I know you do.
I will leave it at that. I know. I will leave it at that. I think you're absolutely right. It's a lack of basics. So.
I completely agree. And now a word from our sponsor, Edgewise Networks. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved are flat networks in cloud and data centers, with unprotected attack paths that allow threats to move laterally to cause data breaches. But microsegmentation using network addresses is complicated and takes too much time. But there's a better approach: Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation, delivering results immediately with a security outcome that's provable. At the core of Edgewise Auto Segmentation is Zero Trust Identity. which allows workloads to communicate only after their software identity has been verified. Malicious or unimproved software is no longer allowed to communicate. Identity-based protection provides more coverage with fewer policies to make Edgewise simple to deploy and manage. No changes to the application or network are required. One solution protects virtual machines and containers in the cloud and on-premises. To stop lateral threat movement and prevent breaches, visit edgewise.net for a demo and to see results within minutes. So what does that mean for 2020, right? Are we just all doomed to follow the same path and nothing's going to change? I mean,
No, God, I hope not. I mean, hindsight is 2020, so we should be able to fix it because it's the year to fix it. Sorry, stupid joke. I don't like predictions. I suck at them, right? The minute I say, well, this is what's going to happen, it's not, right? So I should try things like I will bank. No, what I'd like to see happen though is I'd like to see a movement toward those basics to stop this idea that I'm going to hire people right out of college as senior pen testers because they can be, and have them understand it. And I think that one of the ways to do that, and I want to be very clear, I do not expect this to actually happen anytime soon, but I would love to see it happen sometime soon, is I would like us to see us move away from the model where security is a separate organization. Both inside organizations as third-party consultants, whatever. I'd like us to start going back to the idea that securing things is part of just running our business, doing things correctly. You and I have talked many times about the idea of basic IT hygiene, right? We can talk about the cool security knowledge I have, where if I put a single quote here, I get a database error, and oh my gosh, it's SQL injection, right? And that makes me a wizard, and whatever. But the reality is, putting a single quote in that field and getting a database error is a functionality bug.
Yeah.
So security doesn't have to tell development that. Development should just know that functionality is broken, and so they should fix it. It also happens to be a security issue. The same thing with deploying systems or managing permissions. And every single thing that security has tried to take ownership of is basic business and IT processes. So I'd like to see us take that 400-person IT security team and disperse them into the business. Have them understand what the business does. Have them understand what IT does. Have them be part of all of those processes. If you want to, you can still have the dedicated, I got 2 people who are my security architects, but have them be advisors instead of gatekeepers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah.
Every CISO and CSO in the world is cringing at that idea.
They're probably all cringing.
But,
yes.
Yeah, that's okay. I like making people cringe.
Well, I think what the industry needs kind of a shakeup in a way, right? Something different. We need to do something radically different, and it can't be another blinky light box or cloud-based crazy, solution that's going to solve all your problems.
Yeah.
That's never changed. There's always something cooler, something new, innovative that, all over security. I mean, don't they say that the vendor area at RSA just gets bigger and bigger every year?
Yes.
And it's mostly, and I'd love to do a comparison of how many of those companies at RSA actually exist the following year. And
I believe, not to immediately go back to the idea that things have happened before we talk about them again. I swear there was an article that I read like that a few years ago where it compared the vendor area year over year over year at RSA or Black Hat or whatever, and then also looked at how many of those companies still existed. Now, of course, some of those companies that didn't exist anymore didn't exist because they got bought, right? Like, so the technology still
Yes.
exists, but the company isn't.
Right.
But if I recall correctly, and maybe I'm just, believing this because I think it's true. A large number of those companies, not the IBMs or the
No.
RSAs, right? But the smaller
Startups.
vendors,
Yeah.
the medium-sized vendors,
Yep.
the majority of them didn't exist within a year or two,
Yeah.
right? More so, a higher percentage than the normal, what is it? 50% of all marriages end in divorce, whatever.
Right.
If you don't make it past the first, what is it for a small business? 5 years, they always say.
There's some stat like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that specifically in IT security, that numbers of failures is orders of magnitude higher than in the industries as a whole, the business as a
Yeah.
whole. But yeah, I'd love to see it done again. If I'm wrong that it wasn't done, I'd like to see it done. And if I am right that it was done, I'd love to see it done again.
I'll look that up, and if we do find some article or statistics or research, I'll post it in the show notes. But it's interesting stuff for sure.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right that most of them, they come out with a blinky light thing. They come out with a cool and
AI.
oh, geez. You know the difference between machine learning and AI, right?
Tell me, Kevin, what is it?
Machine learning is in Python and AI is in PowerPoint.
Ooh.
But I read that online somewhere and I love it. So I'll claim it as mine, but it's not.
It's yours now.
But yeah, we allow people to blow smoke and we fund them. And I don't know how that works. I don't know how people convince me. I don't know how you sleep at night if you're one of those people just making stuff up. But
money does weird things to people.
I'd like to test myself with that. If anybody would like to invest $1 billion in SecureIdeas, I'd like to see if we lose our ethics. I'm willing to take that challenge.
All right. Well, for listeners, there you go. Evan has issued a challenge for 2020. I think $1 billion into SecureIdeas. Please.
And then we see if we lose our ethics over the next few years. And Tom, I offer that if we get $1 billion investment, we'll bring you on board so you can
excellent. You'll help
test your ethics with $1 billion.
All of a sudden, shared security is up for sale.
It's awesome. This is great. So,
very cool. All right. Anything you'd like to plug that's upcoming for you here in January timeframe?
We've got our CIS mentorship launching again late January. I'd love to see some people come take that. I think it's a good program. It's gotten great feedback from people, and it's inexpensive. Veteran discount, and if you want to, just reach out to me and I can give you a coupon code for it. So,
great, awesome. Well, as always, Kevin, thank you very much for being on the show and being with me here for the 100th episode of our weekly Blaze.
100 episodes. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's been great. So you've been part of it. So you've been on the show before, and it's just been it's been great. And you'll continue to be on the show, hopefully.
I appreciate that I've fooled you enough at being an expert that you keep having me back.
Well, it's so good. I think we want to continue. So
cool. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Bye-bye.